Aloha, I've got Carl Gibson here with us from the Abolish It action. And thank you, Carl, for joining us. You're coming
Thanks,
from Madison, Wisconsin.
thanks for having me on your program, Dan. And I love the Article 5 convention idea. I think it's great work you're doing.
Great, great. Glad to hear that. Uh, a lot of us that heard about this action, we became very interested in what's going on, and it seemed to have a sort of momentum on its own and a synergy that we really liked and shows a lot of promise. But we're also kind of wondering, who is Carl Gibson? Where'd you come from?
I'm an organizer and have been for a while. But what I tell people is that I was born and raised in Kentucky, and got my accent from Mississippi and my cowboy boots from Texas. So yeah, just kind of all over the place.
Great. Now, you're associated with another friend of ours that we met in our Article 5 group, who's also a member of U.S. Uncut. You helped start that group. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Sure. U.S. Uncut is it's an idea that corporations who exploit tax loopholes and rig the system and hire lobbyists to monkey with the tax code to make us pay for their tax dodging is wrong. And so we basically make the connection between unpaid corporate tax bills and all the forced austerity that Congress and the president are making us deal with as a way to just raise awareness about the problem. And if you want to know more about U.S. I would encourage them to look up the movie We're Not Broke. It's on Hulu and Netflix. It's 88 minutes, and it explains the whole issue and kind of gives some history on U.S. Uncut and how we got started up in the months leading up to the Occupy Wall Street movement.
What was the name of that movie again?
It's called We're Not Broke.
We're Not Broke. Okay. All right. Easy enough. Now, about the Abolish It event, that name is very provocative. What does it mean? What is this event? When is it? Can you describe what's going on there?
Sure. I would first say this isn't a one-time event where people are being asked to show up and then do something and then leave. This is a peaceful revolution that we have every right to invoke. If you look at the Declaration of Independence, signed on July 4th, 1776, one of the principal authors ended up becoming our third president. Thomas Jefferson, he believed that if governments no longer served the needs of the people and became too corrupt to govern, then the people had the right and the obligation to either alter or to abolish it. The Declaration states that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. So with a 9% approval rating since 2011, I don't think this Congress really has our consent anymore. So our past attempts to alter this government through the vote have been crushed through gerrymandering schemes that let unpopular congressmen stay in office and let popular office holders like Dennis Kucinich in Ohio just get completely written out. So that's an ineffective way to alter the government. And other attempts to alter through the protest, as we saw through Occupy, were violently crushed by police and by the state. And so, those attempts to alter have not been successful. I think really the only option left is to abolish it. And so, yeah, that's really just invoking our right to do so. So, yeah, this is going to happen on August 3rd. And we're actually having a call tonight to decide if we want to do it in 4.5 months or if we want to push it back a year and give folks a long time to organize and build coalitions and do all the necessary organizing work that is needed. So basically our goal is to put 2 million people on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. And with 2 million people, we will collectively march forward toward the U.S. Capitol until we're inside the House and Senate chambers. Now, I think they can stop 10,000. They can stop 100,000. But I don't think they can stop 2 million. I think if 2 million people show up, they're just going to have to let them do what they're going to do.
Now, is the intent to encourage people? Now, first of all, this is taking place when Congress has left town for vacation. When they leave, we roll in conceivably, and you're talking about going into the Capitol building when it's basically empty. That's amazing. Now, is the intent to I mean, really abolish our government, or is it a different kind of, or are you more along the lines of altering the government?
I would say, and this is another one of the things that we're going to have conversations about, because I run into a lot of people who are of the opinion that we should abolish and go to self-governing tribal rule. I don't personally agree with that. I'm not an anarchist. I have a lot of anarchist friends and harbor anarchist principles, but the goal between now and when we do this is to decide what our unified goal is going to be. What's something that we can all aspire to and accomplish. And I think, well, maybe not everyone will agree with completely abolishing the government and then walking away and saying, okay, let's self-govern. I think a better idea that I think we could all agree upon is something like the Articles Convention, where we all just come together and say, since this corrupt Congress is bought and paid for by multinational corporations, isn't gonna even acknowledge our efforts to peacefully amend the Constitution, we're just gonna show up and I'm saying we're gonna talk this out and hammer out a new blueprint for what we do want a new government to look like. So that's a continuous conversation, and that's happening right now. But yeah, I think that's something we should address and see if there's some common ground we can find there.
You actually touch on something that we figured out in our group as well, and that is it takes Congress to call a convention, and they really don't want to do it. They know it's their Achilles heel. It would hand over so much power to the people to amend the Constitution as we see fit. And right now they have a perpetual check on the system. And I guess what you've figured out as well here is that we don't need Congress to approve a debate. We can start having that conversation without Congress's blessing. So I'm glad that you folks have figured that part out, and I hope that a lot of people start talking more about a lot of these things and engaging these ideas. We spent a good 2 years with Occupy now, really talking about, well, not quite 2 years, but we've been talking about the grievances and the problems that plague our society, but really haven't been talking much about the solutions yet in black and white terms. And I'm glad that you're bringing that up. Now, are you actually actively organizing the event, or are you hoping that people show up and peacefully gather and basically behave themselves, or is there some kind of agenda for the day?
So basically, what we're doing now is assembling work groups. Now, like we saw in Occupy, a really effective way to get work done was to kind of devise some work groups for people with different expertises to assemble in and talk about and make proposals to then present to a spokes council, so to speak, where a spoke from each work group will participate in a discussion and make decisions. And so the first of those conversations officially is happening tonight. We're having a conference, and yeah, so this is obviously going to take a lot of planning and a lot of organizing. I'm certainly not the only one involved in that process. There's a lot of people who are feeling the same way that you and I are. And so these people have volunteered for different work group tasks, whether that's in transportation or, the heady process of combing through the Constitution and finding, possible amendments, revisions, to, food procurement, to, finding ways to logistically handle, 2 million people assembling and then marching toward one spot. So, there's a lot of work to be done between now on August 3rd of 2013 or 2014, whatever they're deciding upon. And yeah, so this is going to be a very well organized thing. We're not going to ask people, again, really want to reiterate this. This is not a show up and do something and feel good and go home thing. This is a show up and permanently occupy and change our government for the better kind of thing.
Right. And, I guess if I'm going to put in my 2 cents worth, I say sooner than later. That's my vote anyway. Now,
right.
What was it that really struck you where, you can't just come up with this kind of event in a vacuum? Something must have happened where, is there any singular event that really stood out to you where it just struck you that we are far beyond what should be a normal crisis, a normal constitutional crisis? We're in a ditch, basically. Is there anything that personally struck you that things have to change right now?
Yeah, I actually just started organizing a campaign here in Madison a few weeks ago called "Shut the Chamber," and it's aimed at taking on the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is the biggest for multinational corporations in D.C. Now
Hmm.
they spend way more money lobbying than anybody else. They
Yeah.
have a very significant impact on legislation. The Supreme Court has ruled in their favor 100% of the time since Obama's been president, and that's one aspect of the problem. But the more I read into it, the more I see that as long as Congress is captive to corporate cash, and we have fake elections every 4 years where we have to choose between a lesser evils, and really there's very little difference between candidates of both major parties. One is just slightly less evil than the other, or really one is just as evil and they're just really really good at telling you that they're not. But I think really like this past election and lobbying efforts by groups like the chamber and watching this process over the last few months, it just kind of hits you. You know what I'm saying? Like a big wet fish that slaps you in the face. There's so many clearly obvious problems going on and a lot of solutions out there legislatively, really great solutions on the books that, bringing back Glass-Steagall and breaking up the big banks, a 1% sales tax on Wall Street to offset all these cuts. I mean, there's a lot of solutions to all these problems that, aren't really that radical. And not even those solutions can even get talked about in this Congress. So I mean,
Right.
this is clearly a dysfunctional federal government, and I think we have the right to invoke our Declaration of Independence, and what I'm saying,
Yeah.
get together as one nation and decide. Well,
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. You're getting me pretty excited about the about everything you're saying there. I think you nail it. We do have a broken government, and it's that's why we are basically pushing the Article 5 convention. It is the legal reset button in the Constitution. A Especially with the NDAA, where they specifically protect the Constitution from action of threat. They can classify anybody who threatens the Constitution as a terrorist. Um, if we are talking about amending the Constitution in some way that is extra constitutional, that immediately lumps us into enemy category. We've got to be careful about how we present our ideas about how to amend the Constitution. We don't want to overstep our boundaries too much, or we provoke legal action against ourselves. But we do have a legal process in the Constitution, and once we start advocating for that, the government has no choice, because it's a constitutional process, but to embrace it. So it's important to begin that debate, and it's also a little bit scary to wave around the expression "abolish it," but I have to admit that "alter it" doesn't quite have the same ring to it. So
and we've tried that. we,
you
we've
know.
tried it, and they haven't let it happen. So yeah, it's time to invoke the next step.
Right, and it is our Constitution. We do have, and it is expressed in the Declaration of Independence that the Constitution does belong to the people. Well, it doesn't directly refer to the Constitution there, but it does say that the people have that right to alter or to abolish, and it's a very important thing that people understand and wake up to that realization that it really does belong to us. It doesn't belong to Congress. It doesn't belong to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court can only interpret the Constitution that we have. And if we really want to make some permanent changes and put some points on the board and make these things the way we like, we're going to have to make some legal changes. Let's see. Now, have you considered talking much about the Article 5 convention in this event?
Yeah, this is when I did this event, it was really just a way for everybody to just have an outlet to sound off on what they wanted their new government to look like. And so we've gotten a wide range of opinions and conversations and debates that have happened on that page, and it's really exciting. And I think, just like in 1776 through, 1787, it almost tore our country apart, having that debate on what we wanted our next government to look like. And people also were really tentative about what Franklin and Jefferson were trying to do because, you look at history and about a third of the country, even during the Revolutionary War, sided with the crown. And, that faction almost won. And, imagine if they did. So, the purpose behind Abolish It is not to just get together and say, okay, let's get rid of it and go home. I mean, this is a chance for us to have this discussion and have these ideas be put in place. Not just to present them and get angry about it. Like Occupy was great and we all got together and we had public spaces and we were all pissed off together for the first time in a long time. But like you said earlier, I mean, it was, whenever solutions came up, there was a lot of heady discussion and disagreeing and debating. And so this is a chance for us to just have that conversation, present those solutions. And, I don't think Abolish It is really as radical as it sounds. I mean, one of the amendments of the Constitution was the abolition of slavery.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln was an abolitionist. And I see this as having anti-slavery undertones. You look at the fact where, I'm 25 years old. Folks who were in generation, we were with the fact that, you don't really have a choice in how you grow up. What happens is you go to school and then you graduate and then you go to college. And when you go to college, you have to take out loans worth, 6 figures worth of debt and do your best to get a job to pay down those loans that you took out. And so, and the goal is to get a job. That is not necessarily what you want to do for a living and have a successful and rewarding career. And it's just how you can pay those loans down the quickest. And so from almost infancy, we're just bred into a life of financial slavery. And so, I mean, this is really an abolition of that whole slave mindset as well. I mean, this is a time for us to really reimagine not just our political system, but how we conduct our economy and, how we're expected to live our lives.
Right. I think, I believe it was Justice Kennedy who had said that our Constitution defines our mission, defines our purpose, and I think we need to. I mean, basically, our Constitution is so old. We cannot blame our forefathers for not being alive today, and that our Constitution doesn't address the needs of our time. And I think we really do need to really sit down and talk about it. What's that?
Yeah, I mean, it was built with the Constitution was written with mechanisms for us to update our government. Much like a computer is built with mechanisms to update it to the constant stream of new data we expose it to. So the framers knew that they weren't perfect. I mean, hell, Thomas Jefferson, but they built the Constitution with a process to make amendments and for the people to decide that if this current system wasn't working for us, that we had a chance to, devise a new one.
Right.
So I think it's about that time we've had, roughly, 230 years or so to, see if this system will work for us. And we've seen what it's led to now. So This is the end result of this current system. And so it's time for us to update it. And if they won't let us update it, it's time for us to abolish it and, hit reset.
Yeah. And I believe really what it's going to take too, what we've been hoping for is a clear call from the American public to have this convention of the people to amend the Constitution. It has to be a clear call, and it has to be, ultimately it's a political choice of Congress, and only at their own peril will they ever make this choice to do it. So we really need that kind of intense political pressure on Congress to basically hand it over. Let us open it up. And one of the great things about the Article 5 convention too is that nothing is actually done at the convention. These are just proposals. It's still going to take the ratification of 38 states to ratify any of those amendments. So we do have the backstop there of those 38 states. It is a safe process, not as radical as people might think. and hopefully a lot of middle of the road ideas that we can all agree on philosophically will manage to squeak through and make a huge difference in our world. Now, the event,
and this is not a radical idea that you're talking about, because Iceland just had,
right,
a crowdsourced constitution that got voted by the people as the new constitution to be adapted.
right,
What the people did was, just like we're proposing here, they gathered into popular assemblies all over their communities. They decided what they wanted their new constitution to look like. They crowdsourced ideas from social media. People on Facebook and Twitter responded on what they'd like their new government to look like. So the people were given a chance to speak, and the people spoke, and now the government is implementing that process. I mean, it gives me a lot of hope for what we can accomplish here.
Yeah, they kind of charged into it too, and they did it wrong at first, and the court called them on it. They said, you can't do this. This is not a legal process. So they basically started from scratch again, but they'd already had the debate. So it was very simple to just kind of go through everything legally and basically reaffirm everything that they had already decided. So there again, it's a lot easier to start the debate towards this kind of change long before the legal process catches up to it. So once again, the momentum you guys are creating is, it was a two-prong attack, I guess, basically in Iceland. They had the protest going on in the streets, but they also had the constitutional effort going on. And we have the people in the streets from time to time here in the United States, but we don't have the constitutional process really working for us. It's supposed to be a living, breathing document, and right now we can't quite get it to take a breath. Now, I want to get back to the event here real quick too, just to make sure that this event, the Tea Partiers have shown up recently in D.C., Occupy has shown up in D.C. Is this an Occupy event? Is this a Tea Party event? Is this an American event?
I see this as, regardless of, whether you're white or black or brown or Tea Party or Occupy, I mean, we're all red, white, and blue. I mean, this is everybody's country. We all live here. We all have to live under this government. And so, I mean, I don't agree with most of what the party says. You know what I'm saying? I don't agree with what a lot of my libertarian and anarchist friends say. I personally identify as an eco-socialist. A lot of people don't. So, I mean, this is a very diverse country, and I'm really looking forward to the surely contentious debates that we're going to have in the coming months. And people from all over the country have every right to be heard. And considering I'm a privileged white male, even more of a right to be heard than I do. And I encourage everyone to sound off and, I'm saying, have this discussion and have this debate. I think given that we're asking for a massive wave of people to descend on one place, I think giving people, I'm saying, even just 4.5 months at a time, starting on the West Coast, going to your state capitals in California, Oregon, Washington, I'm saying, people gradually moving east through New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, and gradually moving up Florida through South Carolina and Virginia and down south from Maine on down to D.C. I mean, I think this is a chance for all of us to have, not just a debate, but also an exodus to our nation's capital. And we're all just going to hang out there and have this debate and hammer out these proposals. And you know what I'm saying? And then take it to the courts and take it to the states and get this thing ratified. And, make sure that these proposals get accepted and made into law.
Right. Yeah, I hope it does start a legal process from that event. Once again, that event is on August 3rd, coming up, hopefully this year. And I'd encourage everybody watching this video to join the Abolish It event. As Abolish It with an exclamation point. Started by none other than Carl Gibson here. And please join that event. Of course, join our page too at articlev.org. And hopefully we can get everybody together in one big tent and get that clear call to alter our Constitution and make some permanent changes around here. Thanks again, Carl, for joining me today and helping me get the word out. I hope this helps the event too.
Thanks, Dan, and it was great talking with you. And let's stay in touch.
All right, great. Definitely, we want some updates. Aloha. Thanks again.
All right.
Perhaps a super persona could go to chill on my elbow and let me dance to the tune of the sirens as they get closer. It's holding breath like it prevents death, though it slows the pulse and oh, it comes in waves that bitter in space. Placing every passing phase that paves the path for a winter so cold it'll freeze your ass, but only for the blink of an eye, the length of a breath, the static in between the audible frequencies you got left like you're banging on aluminum. You're banging, you're banging, you're banging on aluminum. Here, the heart will melt. Here, the tide will turn. Here, it all will thaw. And in the end, you just walk. You just want summer. We just want summer. We just want summer.